Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna be telling you my birth story. He's 6 weeks old today.
Just hit 6 weeks.
And I've been trying to film this video this whole time, but it's just so hard with a newborn. So we've scraped some time together. He's asleep right now, but I probably have to feed him soon and we're losing daylight, so hopefully we can get through this. I also want to preface this by saying this birth story is not a positive one. So if you are pregnant right now, I would advise not watching this video and just keeping all the happy thoughts going for you. I'm sure you will have a positive birth, and it's just better to be in a positive mindset no matter what happens. So I'm a bit out of touch with filming videos. I'm not sure if I introduced my husband Ryan, but
Hello.
This is Ryan, everyone. I ended up going into labor at 37 weeks. And before then, I just want to backtrack a little bit and say, like, we started getting really, I did, especially, did you? Started getting really stressed that we didn't have everything together.
Yeah, I think everyone was telling us it's like, oh, normally your first pregnancy tends to go over the due date.
Yeah, like beyond 40 weeks.
Yeah, so we were kind of like, okay, well that's like the expected kind of date will be over. And I kind of had this nagging idea, like maybe we should get stuff ready because all the notes and books and everything was saying like, oh, you should start getting stuff packed and get all the things you need now. We were like, we've still got a bit of time.
Yeah. Also, that being said, I kept saying, oh, I think I'll go earlier because of my adenomyosis. If you know about the condition, I'll link like my video about it below. Basically, one of the things that can happen with the condition is that it makes you go into labor sooner. They say preterm labor though, so I did make it to 37 weeks, which means it wasn't preterm labor, but it still was earlier than expected. And yeah, like the couple weeks prior to 37 weeks, we just started organizing everything. I think you got like the bassinet.
Yeah, we got a few things done, like we got the car seat installed, we had the bassinet set up.
Ryan kept wanting to install the car seat and I'm like, no, not yet, because I've heard that if you get into a crash, the car seat's basically useless and you need to get a new one. I'm like, that was expensive. Like, let's not put it in just yet, just in case.
But they also kind of need it in case your baby does come early, and you can't. They even say like you can't leave the hospital without a car seat. Basically, like you need to have one in the. You can't hold the baby like in your arms or anything. It has to be in the car seat.
Yeah, I think you got it installed like the week prior.
Yeah, I think it was like literally the week prior. Or even a couple of days before or something.
And for me, like, I was just trying to get everything ready in terms of recovery items. What would I need? I was looking up YouTube videos and watching everyone's videos about what they used after birth, and everyone was saying like the Freedom Mum peri bottle and like all this random stuff. So I was trying to like buy all that like care stuff and also like just extra things we needed for the baby. It was like a mad rush. And then actually the night before I went into labor, I started to pack my hospital bag. And I only got like halfway through. Oh, also we ordered a TENS machine.
Yeah.
And I didn't test it out until the day before as well. So I think we went to sleep at like 12. And then, a few days before that as well, just to backtrack a tiny bit, I was starting to get more cramping, but I wasn't that concerned about it because I've had cramping on and off throughout this pregnancy. And I think that is also due to my adenomyosis. Not entirely sure. I just felt uncomfortable all night. Like I felt like period style cramping sort of happening. And I was like, oh, maybe my pants are too tight because I had bought new pajamas and I was wearing them for the first time. Like, oh, maybe they're too tight. Like I will change out of them. So I did, and I went back to sleep, but the cramping continued, and then it started getting stronger and stronger until it woke me up at 5 a.m. And I'm like, okay. Maybe something's going on here. And then I tried to go back to sleep because Ryan had work that day. Well, you're supposed to.
Yeah, I was supposed to have work that day. I think, you're trying to sort of leave me be just in case. I had to actually, it was just nothing and then I had to go to work.
If it was nothing, or even if it was like early labor and like I didn't know how long everything would take, maybe it was like a bit of cramping, maybe it would go away, maybe it would be a few days. I wanted to let Ryan sleep as long as he could so he'd be fresh and ready for work. As the time went on, I think around 5:30, I noticed a feeling of like mucus happen down there. So I went to the toilet and I checked and there was a bit of blood. So like they call that the bloody show, or like the mucus plug sort of coming loose. Yeah, I was like, okay.
It's like, this is more serious.
So then I like woke Ryan up. I'm like, Ryan, I think I'm in labour.
Mm.
What did you think when I said that?
I mean, like, you get woken up, you're in a bit of a daze, but I think when you said that, I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was pretty much like straight up and like, yeah, let's do this.
Were you like scared or excited?
I think I was just trying to figure out what was the first step. You know, I was like, okay, so what's happened? You know, trying to figure out where we were, you know, what we needed to do. And I was like, you know, do we need to go to the hospital now? And I think everything that we had heard or been told by, I guess, the maternity nurses or, you know, just the...
Yeah, we did a childbirth class with the hospital. And they said if you start to go into labour, like put a pad on so that if your water breaks, they can look at the pad and tell the colour of it. Because that's important to them. They need to know if your waters have actually broken or not. Like, they don't really trust your word.
Yeah.
Even when we went in, they were like, oh, it's good you brought your pads in because otherwise we'd have to use like a specular and check you. I'm like, oh, that sounds
Don't
painful.
want that.
Yeah.
They also said to call, said if your water breaks, so you get like the
right.
bloody show or something, just to call them and let them know.
Oh, was it for bloody show or for waters breaking though? I think that was for
it's just water's breaking. I think
Yeah.
they said bloody show's okay, but yeah, they said if your water breaks to give them a call, which I think is what we did around like 6 o'clock or something.
Yeah.
By the time you'd woken me up, that was pretty much it. You were like
Yeah.
committed to being awake, and we were like, let's get ready.
Yeah, and okay, yeah. It's hard to go back and think about it.
Yeah, it was all a bit of a rush of that day.
It's like 6 a.m. and during the night I felt kind of uncomfortable. I think I might be in the early stages of labour, which is crazy. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm getting contractions. This might be the last time we see the bump. This is how big it got.
So then I was considering like, do I start packing my hospital bag or like, should I have a shower, get ready, eat some breakfast? But I was still like in this mindset of like, I probably have more time, probably don't need to pack my hospital bag right now. I'd also just washed all his baby clothes. I remember looking, like going to the clothesline and looking at all his baby clothes and being like, oh, I guess I should pack like his baby clothes too. Because we hadn't packed anything for the baby to take to the hospital either. And yeah, when I was walking to look at his baby clothes and to pick something out to put in the bag, I noticed like a small gush and I was like, oh my god, I think my waters are breaking. But I wasn't completely like convinced that they were breaking because it was just a small gush. I was like, maybe it's more like, you know, mucus or whatever. But I went to the toilet and it was. I'm like, not super convinced yet. Everything wasn't like very convincing for me.
Yeah.
I thought everything would take a lot longer. Soon after that, I think...
Also, your waters don't always break either.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I think that's the big thing I think that was something that they said we even noticed was like in the films, they always signal pregnancy by waters breaking.
Yeah.
But it's not like that. Sometimes your waters don't even break at all. So to have them happen, I guess, like really early on in the labour was a bit like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't convinced. I'm like, no, they're not broken yet. Like, that's too early.
Yeah. I'm sure it's just some other kind of fluid. Yeah.
Maybe I peed or something. I'm not sure.
And we're back. He started crying, so we went and picked him up.
Yes.
Got him in a little carrier now, and he's nice and happy. He's warm. Mm-hmm. Oh, you can hear him. Oh.
He likes to sleep on Ryan, so...
Yeah, we have nicknames. I'm Bed, she's Milky's.
Yes.
So. You could also call me Change Table.
Yep.
I called the hospital, yeah, and then I said to them basically what had happened. His water broke, we had a bit of blood from the bloody show, and they just said, yeah, cool, probably get down here as soon as you can. And then I think I asked Mads. I was like, okay, so they said we should get down there as soon as we can. And Mads was like, can you ask them if I can like have a shower and some food and stuff first?
No, I was like, I'm still packing.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, I mean, like, get down here when you can. You should be okay to have a shower.
Yeah.
But then Mads ended up basically like having a shower, packing, having breakfast. Well, that's like 2 hours later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was like an hour and a half to 2 hours later.
Yeah, it was a while.
Got everything packed just in case. Put everything in the car. Started going to the hospital. They basically wanted to have me in because my waters broke, just to monitor the baby's heart rate and see if the baby was coping well, that my waters had broken and everything was good with the baby.
Yes.
So we got in there and they strapped one of those fetal heart rate monitors. I think I have like a photo as well of it, so I might insert some footage and stuff.
Hey guys, it's Ryan here. Maddie's water broke this morning. Here she is.
Hello.
How you going, Mads?
Good.
How are the surges?
They're okay. We're calling contraction surges.
Yeah, contractions are surges. We're doing hypno-birthing, and that's kind of what we have to do, make things less negative.
Yep. And right now I have to be monitored because my water broke. They just want to make sure like the baby is happy in his new environment with less amniotic fluid.
Checking out his heart rate, making sure everything's okay based on the contractions.
Get my big belly in it.
That's big belly. That's a perfect shot.
It's beautiful.
They said they need to monitor the baby's heart rate, and they said that monitoring would only take 30 minutes. And we're like, cool. So we like sat in the room, they like checked the pads that I was wearing, and then I was just sitting there waiting.
And at this point, Maddie's contractions weren't too bad.
No, and I had also done some hypno-birthing beforehand, like I did an online course on it, just because I wanted to have like more of a relaxed birth, maybe more of a natural birth. I kind of wanted to stay away from painkillers to an extent. I basically really just wanted to breathe through all the contractions. That was my mindset going into it.
They said 30 minutes, but then 30 minutes came by, and then they're like, oh, we just need to do some more testing, I just want to check. So they left it for like another half hour. And then we were kind of like, okay, we've been there like an hour now.
Yeah, well, I kind of didn't notice the time going by because I was trying to breathe through my contractions. And then, after a while, we're like, actually, we've been here quite some time.
Yeah, and then I think we're trying to figure out what's going on, and they kept having like different people come in and like check over everything.
But they didn't seem alarmed in any way.
Yeah,
and they didn't really let us know what was going on.
Yeah.
Until the end.
It ended up being like, I think we were there, like Maddie said, about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
It was 2.5 hours we were there.
Okay, well, there you go. 2.5 hours we were chilling, waiting to find out what the heck was going on. And I think at the 2 hour mark, someone basically came in and they said, what we found at the start was when we first came in at that first half hour, was that heart rate was actually low, and then it jumped back up.
And it went low with the contractions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was a little foreshadowing. But they sort of, after that, it went low and then it came back up and then it was fine. So then they were basically just getting us to stay there and monitor how things were going.
I don't know how long it was fine for, but they were waiting for a chunk of time for it to not dip.
Yeah.
So that they could send us home again. They didn't really want us to stay in the hospital any more time than we needed to, just because it would be more comfortable for me to continue to labour at home until a point where it got too intense and I needed to come back to the hospital. Once we got all clear, we went back home. By the time we got home, it was starting to get much more intense for me.
Yeah, I think even at that 2.5 hour mark when we were still there, like Matt was saying that they was getting a bit more intense.
Yeah.
And we drove home and I think they just started getting worse and worse.
They were. Ryan made me some lunch. I tried to go back to sleep, try and get some more rest. I really couldn't sleep though. I was in a lot of pain. Ryan helped me set up the TENS machine to help with the pain, and that was actually quite helpful. So do recommend.
Yeah, get a TENS machine. And I think we
hired one.
We hired one. It was only like $45 or it was like $45 to $50, and I think we had it. They said we get it for like 4 weeks. And it's easier than buying them because you don't really need it for like that day.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, I think Mum was like she needs to go back to the hospital.
Yeah, your mum came and found me and was like, oh yeah, she needs to go back because like her contractions got really bad. So I was like, cool. Yeah. So I came and asked you, and you were like, yeah, I want to go back. So I called the hospital, and then I was like, hey, her contractions are getting really bad. Should we come back? And they were like, oh, look, if you can handle being at home, just a little bit longer, then do so. But if not, that's fine. You can come in. And basically, I hung up the phone. It was like 2 minutes. I was, and Matt was like, no, I need to go in. So I had to call back up, and I was like, yeah, we're coming in. Yeah. And they're like, okay, no worries. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. We'll get a room set up for you.
And then I remember on the car ride there, it was agony being in that car. Any little bump, turn, anything, like it was just like setting off the pain of the contractions so badly. I was just like gripping the car seat, like, grimacing.
We left in our car, and then Maddie's mum also left in her car, and we left first, and we got to the hospital first, and we parked. Yeah. And then Maddie was in so much pain from just that small car ride, because it's only about a 5-minute car ride. And just from that small car ride, and we were like stuck in the car for 10 minutes while Maddie was like trying to calm down. And then it was like a slow hobble like into the hospital. and then like into the elevator and upstairs. And Maddie's mum had already somehow managed to like get up there, and she's like, I don't know what room you guys are in. Like, we're not even there yet.
Yeah. I like slowly walked into the hospital, and then I was like, I can't walk anymore. And they're like, we don't think we have a wheelchair.
Yeah. Oh, we don't have a wheelchair, and I'm like, you need
it.
to get a wheelchair. Sorry, like.
And then they did find one, which is good. They were like, oh, lucky last one.
We haven't like Maddie was like you think about the slowest pace you can walk, and then like halve that, and then she would probably do like a couple meters and then have to stop and like deal with the contraction, and then we would get a slow hobble, and I'm like, we're never going to make it to the room at this pace. Like, you need to get us a wheelchair so I can put her in and wheel her out.
Then we arrived in the birthing suite area that they have. Actually, to go back just a teeny little bit, while we were having the baby heart rate monitoring earlier in the day, we had a nice nurse come in that was like pro hypno-birthing, and she's like, oh, you're doing such a great job breathing through your contractions. And then she talked to me about hypnobirthing. She was like really excited. And then when we came back in, she was really excited that I'd come back, and she was like, oh, I've set up this really lovely hypnobirthing room for you. Like, it's the biggest room we have. And like, she put on calming music, the lights were dim, she had like salt lamps and like this little sunset on the display monitor, and yeah, it was just really lovely.
Yeah, she was nice. And apparently she was even one of the teachers of like some of the hypnobirthing courses, so she was super pro hypnobirth.
Yeah, yeah, she was like, oh, you'll have an excellent birth.
But then she ended up leaving because I think her shift ended at like 2 o'clock or something, or I can't remember what time, but she basically left as we got there.
But she was really sweet to like set all that up for me.
Yeah, she was.
They had like an exercise ball that you can sit on. So I sort of sat on that and leant over the hospital bed, and I was just breathing through the contractions and using the TENS machine. TENS machine we had like a birth setting, so like every time the contraction came in, I would press like the birth button.
It's called boost.
Boost button,
Boost
and then
button.
it would like boost everything for while the contraction was there, and then I'd like turn it off. That was really helpful. I guess it tricks your mind out of some of the pain that's going on, or like helps you focus on something else.
I think Maddie's contractions as well had gotten so bad that as soon as we got there, where you got to set up on the gas they have, the laughing gas.
Yeah, I was like, I need the gas pretty straight away.
And you were still in so much pain even with the TENS machine and the laughing gas.
Yeah.
So I'm like so surprised. I'm like, imagine if you didn't have either of those things, how bad it would have been.
I don't know how women do it. Like, I'm not sure if mine was extra painful. I'm sure that's what every woman says though. You know, like labor is not a walk in the park. At the start I was like, oh yeah, like period cramps. And then towards the end I'm like, this is nothing like period cramps. Even with my periods, like I have endometriosis and adenomyosis, and they get really awful. But this exceeded that, and I wasn't sure before going into labor that any pain could even match that. But it could. So
we were shocked, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it is quite a different pain to that sort of pain. And it only lasts like for a few seconds, and then you get a break, and then it comes back and you get a break.
I think as well, as soon as we got in there too, and they set Maddie up on the bed in the laughing gas, they had to do like an internal examination because they were checking to see how dilated Maddie was.
I don't think they did that until I asked for morphine.
It's only like when you're an adult and you try and go to sleep, and like most people generally need like, it needs to be pitch black and no noise, and I've got to be in this one position or I won't get to sleep. And babies are like, I need consistent rocking and shaking of my physical body. Like, I need a noise playing, like, shush at me, like, I need someone constantly touching me and moving me. It's so different how much you change from a baby.
It's because he was in the womb.
He was in the womb.
There's many movements in the womb. So we're disagreeing a little bit with the story. Ryan thinks once we got in, they checked me to see how far along I was. And I think they only checked me once I asked for the morphine because I couldn't handle the pain anymore. So, like, it's going to be a mystery. We're not going to know which one it was. Either way, like, it got to a point where everything was getting so intense and I was really struggling to breathe through the contractions. With the hypnobirthing, you're meant to like really relax and just sort of like drop and breathe. But it came to a point where I was like so tense every contraction. I was like gripping the bed. I don't think I was screaming in pain. I was making noises.
You're definitely, you're just making a lot of like grunting noises. It's like
grunting noises.
And then Maddie was obviously she was still going through all her contractions, and then she was getting a lot of pain. So she got to the point where she was like, I need morphine. And like I think Maddie said earlier in the video that like she wasn't even really planning on having
No.
much kind of like medicine, medical help.
No, yeah, I really wanted to avoid as many painkillers as possible and really just go the hypno-birthing route and just breathe through it all as much as I could and get it through naturally if I could. But I was also open to the idea of like, if it got too much for me, I will have the painkillers.
Yeah. And also that is, if anybody else listening, that is actually what you're supposed to do with hypnobirthing. Like it's really a preference, not an absolute.
We made a birth preferences, not a birth plan.
Yes.
That was what we were going in with the mindset of.
So if you are going and being like, I'm going to have full no medical help or anything, if you need the medical help, that's okay. It's always just a preference, not a plan.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what happened to us. So.
Yeah. So it got to a point, it was too much. I was like, I need the morphine. I know that they checked me before having the morphine because morphine can make the baby sleepy. So you want to give the morphine at least 2 hours before the baby is born. So that's why they have to check you and make sure that you're not super far along, because if you are, they're not going to give you the morphine. Also, some people might be like, oh, morphine injection, why not go epidural? Well, in the childbirth class that we did, the morphine had a lot less side effects associated than the epidural. That's why that was the strongest painkiller I had wanted to go. They took an hour and a half.
It was so excruciatingly long. Yeah, we'll give you the morphine, but we need to get checked off by like 2 senior, nurses or something, or
they
doctors.
They just need a second nurse to sign off on it.
No, but it had to be
like a doctor.
It had to be a senior though, like someone a bit higher up, because otherwise they would have just gotten anyone.
Yeah.
It had to be someone like senior, and they were waiting for that person to check it off.
Yeah.
And at this point, Maddie's contractions is getting more and more and more painful, to the point where she's basically like crying and begging for this morphine.
Yeah.
And I'm having to like run off and try and find the nurse and be like, guys, what is the holdup? It's been an hour already. And then they're like, oh yeah, we're getting it. And then I think I had to go out a few times and try and find them. Just be like, hurry up. Like, it shouldn't take that long to get morphine.
Yeah.
And look, maybe that is how long it normally takes, but it just seemed a bit excessive, an hour and a half wait.
I sort of had this theory that people in the hospital purposefully wait to give pregnant, labouring women painkillers because they want you to progress further without it. That's my theory. Because I swear to God, every time anyone says, oh, I wanted this, that's always followed up by, and I had to wait so long for it. Like, they never give it to you just then and there.
Yeah.
That's my own conspiracy theory. But
medical people write in the comments and tell us.
Yeah, or maybe they really were busy. Like, they could have been. I mean, they're probably saving lives. It is a hospital. Yeah. So they gave me the morphine and I vomited immediately. Yeah,
it wasn't even like a couple of minutes later. Like, as soon as they gave it to you, she started like vomiting.
Yeah. And I think that's because morphine makes you nauseous.
It does. And then they had to give you a like an anti-nausea injection as well.
Yeah, I think they gave it to me at the same time, but they just hit so quick or something. I don't know, it just made me instant vomit. But when I vomited, I got excited because I'm like, oh, I've been having such intense contractions and now I've vomited. This must be the transition period. The transition period is apparently when, like, just before you're about to give birth and you feel like you can't do it anymore and you start vomiting or shaking, or like, it's different for every woman. And I thought, oh, maybe vomiting is a sign that I'm there. But no, that wasn't the case. But yeah, like, everything happened pretty quick at that point. So they injected me, I vomited, and they put the belly band to check the baby's heart rate again.
Yeah, the same one we had when we first went in and did the heart rate.
Apparently it was slipping off, they couldn't get a good read. I also think maybe they weren't getting a good read because his heart rate was dropping, and because it was slipping around a little bit, they're like, is it dropping or is like the heart rate monitor slipping off? And they're like, we have to put in an internal monitor onto his head to monitor the heart rate. And that was awful for me. I didn't say at the start, but I didn't want any vaginal examinations. I didn't want to be checked at all because I had heard that it can be quite painful. For some women it's painful, for some women it's not. And also I've heard that it can stall labour a little bit because you sort of tense up a little bit. So they put the little skull cap heart rate monitor on him, and that was excruciating. I think like I was screaming or crying in pain when they did that. Pretty much as soon as they put that on and saw the heart rate, they realized that his heart rate was dropping very quickly for every contraction, and like everything happened in a blur. It
was all, like they said, it was very just like really quick. Morphine, throw up, monitor, and then they saw the heart rate drop or dropping, so then they did the other injection, stopped the contractions, and then like 12 people just like sprinted in the room and just started doing all this stuff. Yeah, it was a it's scary. And then they said, they just
Yeah.
came up to us and like, we might have to go and do an emergency C-section like right now. We're just checking stuff. But a lot of people weren't really communicating anything to us. They were kind of just doing stuff.
I remember like just crying immediately when everyone rushed into the room, because I thought that because I had had the morphine injection, that contributed to his heart rate dropping and that it was my fault. So I was like, oh my God, like I've hurt my baby, like I shouldn't have had the morphine, and like crying and sobbing. And then the midwife was like, no, like it hasn't kicked in yet. There's no way like that is contributing to his heart rate dropping. That made me feel better, but I just remember being like really panicked. In saying that, all the nurses were really lovely. The doctor came by and explained everything that happened to me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to tell that part?
Yeah, well, a point to note as well is that they had to do another vaginal examination on Maddie to check everything.
Yeah.
And she was still 4 centimeters dilated, so...
Yeah, when they put the skull cap on, that's when they checked the dilation again, and it was only still a 3 or 4, and they were like...
So, I mean, like, in that hour and a half period, she hadn't dilated at all. Which I thought it was longer, because I thought they checked when we first got in there, and I thought it was like 3 or 4 hours and nothing had changed.
Later on, they checked me again and I'm still not progressed, so maybe that's what you're getting confused with.
Maybe. Pretty much Maddie didn't progress past 4 centimeters.
Yeah.
Dilation.
Yeah.
And yeah, the doctor came in. He was nice. Pretty much after they had gotten everything secure, Maddie had the anti-contraction injection.
Yeah.
So she was kind of feeling a bit better, just because
Yeah.
of course she wasn't contracting anymore, which is great.
And I was so out of it, I actually thought that it was the morphine doing that.
They're like, no, that's not the morphine. But yeah, then there was just like this one, I guess he was like the head nurse at the time, or the head doctor. And he basically came up and said, hey, that was obviously probably a bit scary for you guys. Basically what happened was, his heart rate dropped. We had to check, we had to stop the contractions and basically check and see if his heart rate was going to keep dropping. If it was, we would have had to rush you down to get an emergency C-section like right now. But he said, but after we stopped the contractions, his heart rate went back up. Which basically means that like we are good to keep you here and just and see if you can do a natural birth if that's what you want. Yeah,
the game plan was like, Mum said the other night that they gave me the option then and there to do a C-section.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
No, they did. They said like you could, if you want, like you could go and do a C-section now. But I think you were like, I want to try and do a natural birth. So they said, cool, no worries. And then they said, but if it happens again, pretty well, like it would be a.
Yeah.
You don't really have much of an option.
We'd all opted for me to rest, baby to rest without the contractions, and then for when they start kicking back up again, see how his heart rate is doing.
Oh, also, me in this situation, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
For the past couple days, had horrible stomach issues.
He has IBS.
Yeah, I have IBS, but my stomach had flared up with something.
Yeah,
so
poor thing.
it was really bad. So I was having to go to the bathroom a lot. Just was not pretty. So
and it flared up again in the hospital.
Yeah.
Was it when that happened?
It was a bit later
it was
after
the second
that.
time.
Yeah, it was the second time.
Foreshadowing. I think before that you had gone to the bathroom a few times and Mum was there with me and she was rubbing my back and stuff, and that was helpful.
Just letting that out there for a thing that comes up later. Yeah, so I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah. So I remember at this point I think it was dinner time, and I know Mum went home for a bit, and then I remember she came back, and when she came in the room she was like, oh, is she still asleep? And the midwife was like, oh no, she's breathing through the contractions right now. She's having really strong ones again. I guess the heart rate didn't drop straight away, did it? Because the contractions started coming back and no one rushed in immediately. They
came back slowly after I think an hour and a half or something like that. Yeah, it was a little bit of time and your contractions slowly started coming back.
Yeah.
And then his heart rate was okay. Once they came back more intensely, his heart rate started dropping again.
Something else happened during this time as well. The midwife that I had needed to go home because the shift was over, and then 2 new midwives came in, and so it was an actual midwife and then a student. Because I felt really vulnerable in this state of labour and stuff, I got really upset that there was a student there. I just had the scare of having a potential C-section. I really wanted to focus on my breathing and relaxing and not stressing my body out just in case that was contributing to like his heart rate dropping. So when like she came in with a student and I wasn't comfortable with it, I like tried to like voice my concern. Be like, oh, I'm not comfortable with like a student being here. That caused me so much anxiety because I'm actually like quite introverted and shy and don't want to cause any conflict. So for me to say that caused me so much anxiety. And then she was like, oh, we're a teaching hospital here and you're currently the only one like in labour in the ward. So like there's nowhere for her to go. I was like, oh.
Too bad for them, I guess.
Yeah, no, and she really like pushed for the student to stay, and then I pretty much gave in. I was like, yeah, okay, she can stay. And then after that, I felt so bad, and I kept trying to I remember I was so out of it, I kept trying to apologise to different midwives, because I thought they were her, but I didn't know what her face was.
You can't, yeah, even a mistake, you can't just forgot about it.
Yeah.
They were.
I felt so bad, and then I eventually did find her. I think it was like later on, and I apologized to her, and she was like, why are you apologizing to me? And then pretty much soon after that, I think the little skull cap heart rate monitor that was on him came loose. And then everything started to kick off again. So that came loose, and they're like, we need to reattach it.
And at this point, by the way, I had to go to the bathroom because of my stomach. So I was gone while this was happening.
Yes. So they're like, we need to reattach it. I'm like, no, please. Like, I can't go through that pain again. And then my mum was there with me, luckily, while you were in the bathroom. And she like came up around this side of me, and she was like holding me as I basically screamed and cried as they reattached it because it was that painful. Like, it seemed like every time they went back in there, it was more and more painful. Like, I'm not sure why, like, or maybe it was that painful the whole time, but I remember that time in particular, like, it was excruciating. Like, I just started sobbing after it. But it was reattached, and I think at that point, everyone started rushing in the room again because his heart rate had dropped. And then what happened on your end?
So yeah, I was in the bathroom. Basically, like with my issue, it's like you kind of just need to sit and let your body relax naturally for a while. But then I got a call from Jen, basically, Maddie's mum, basically saying like, hey, you need to come back like immediately. Yeah. So I had to get up and rush back through. And then when I got there, they basically said the heart rate's dropped.
And everyone was in the room again?
Yeah, everyone was in the room again, so it was a huge thing. I came back all shocked.
Yeah, and they injected me again with the thing that stops the contractions.
Yeah, the anti-contraction in your medicine. And then they basically said, hey, his heart rate has dropped again. Yeah. You are pretty much at the point now where you have to go and have a C-section. Yeah. Like, you don't really get a choice. They said you can, if they said you can, it's always your choice. You can try and do it naturally, but at this point, it's getting to the point where you're putting yourself and the baby at risk if you keep going.
I feel like they were alluding to a choice, but really I didn't have one.
Yeah. I think this was about 10 o'clock at night as well, by the way.
Yeah.
I think when I came
when they did the reattachment, I was still at a 3 or a 4. I hadn't progressed anything.
Yeah, when I came back in the room, Jen kind of gave me a lowdown. The nurses gave me a lowdown. Maddie was like uncontrollably sobbing and crying and in pain because obviously, like, you know, we didn't even think about having a C-section.
No,
like, beforehand, we didn't research it at all because we were like, it's not even on the table for us to have one.
Yeah, like, I had done all these hypno-birthing classes, wanting to have, like, as natural a labour as possible, mainly because of my endoadenomyosis. Like, I always thought that if I had a C-section, it would interfere with my adenomyosis in my uterus, which is why I never considered a C-section. I was like, that's not going to happen to me. I don't need to research it. It's not happening. Like, I'm going as natural as possible. I'm doing everything I can. I'm relaxing. I'm breathing through. Like, I'm going to get through this. And with that too, like, I researched all the different things that can happen when you're giving birth vaginally. Like, I was prepared for any of those things. I was like, okay, forceps could happen. Like, maybe if it gets way too intense, like, I'll need an epidural, or like this could happen. Like, and I was prepared, but I wasn't prepared at all for a C-section. Like, it wasn't in the cards. I didn't want it to happen. I remember when they said, you will have to have a C-section now, like, you need to do this for your baby, pretty much. I was crying again, and I was saying to, like, mum and the nurses and doctors and everyone, I'm like, but it might affect my fertility. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with my adenomyosis. Like, will this, like, ruin my chances of having another baby? Like, I was, like, you know, so out of it, so distraught. Like, I hadn't researched at all, like, anything about C-sections and adenomyosis, if it makes it worse, if it, you know, either way, like, even if I did research it, I didn't really have a choice. To keep him safe, I needed to have a C-section. And like everyone in the room, like I think my mum said, you just need to focus on this baby. So that gave me like a bit of a reality check.
Yeah, and I think another thing was you were blaming yourself, saying like, oh, maybe I should have done this or could have done that, or maybe I shouldn't have had the morphine and like all this stuff. And we were just, I think we were trying to reiterate to Maddie, it's like, it's nothing you did, you know, sometimes this just happens.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, even our pregnancy up to that point, you know, your pregnancy was completely fine. It was normal.
Yeah.
There wasn't really any complications.
Yeah.
Every ultrasound we had, you know, he was totally fine.
Just a bit of cramping during it and bad morning sickness in the beginning, but otherwise completely healthy pregnancy. And those things are quite normal.
Yeah. So,
maybe not the cramping, but the morning sickness is normal.
You'd gotten told all that. I came into the room. They did the rundown with me. We were calming you down. They tried to flip Maddie over to check some stuff in your hand.
Yeah, I had like a little catheter, put like IV drips in and stuff.
Yeah, it came out, so then blood was spewing out of Maddie's hand.
Yeah, Ryan's like, she's bleeding.
Yeah, like the catheter came out, there's blood, it was almost in a vein, so like there's blood shooting out of her vein onto her hand, and like I'm trying to like hold it down. I'm like, guys, the hand's bleeding. And the nurse was like, oh yeah, cool. And just kept doing everything else.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, can we just get like a bandage or something?
Yeah.
And then another nurse came up, she was like, oh, she's bleeding. Like, so they had to like try and reattach the catheter and get a bandage in, and then like my hands were covered in blood. And I think after that they injected Maddie with the anti-contraction medication.
Yeah.
And then it only like before the first time, it lasted about like an hour and a half, but I think it loses effectiveness the more you have it. And then the second time it only lasted like, I thought like 25-30 minutes.
Yeah, it didn't last very long at all. I think the surgeon at the time was finishing up with another C-section.
Yeah.
We had to wait to have our C-section, and during this time like my contractions are getting like way more intense, and by the time they were ready I remember them like wheeling me down, like transferring me to the bed to like a wheelie table so they can wheel me down, and like every little movement, every little bump in the road, like I thought the car ride was bad to the hospital after having that stronger contractions and then being like wheeled down. It was just excruciating. It was agony.
I had to leave at that point because they took Maddie off on her own, and then they took me off to a different sort of section.
Yeah.
Because they had to get Maddie prepped for the theatre, and then I went off to sort of get, I guess, like suited up. We were sort of separated for like, I think 30 minutes or something at that point. And I think, so at that point, I think just before we headed down, it was probably like 20 past 11, I think. And it took them like 25 minutes or something to get us down there and actually like get everything sorted. You know, so we're getting close to midnight at this point.
Also, it was Ryan's Nana's birthday.
Yeah, my grandma.
That day. We were kind of like, oh, will he be born on her birthday? We were kind of excited about that. But at the same time, we weren't really thinking, well, I in particular wasn't really thinking about that at that point.
Yeah.
Like I was earlier in the day. But for me getting prepped for the C-section, once I was down the room, they like injected my spine with like a spinal block. It wasn't like an epidural. It was like, I think, a localized anesthetic so that like I couldn't feel anything.
You could still, you could still feel touch, but not pain.
That's right. They're like, you'll still be able to feel touch and you might feel some tugging and movement, but you won't be able to feel temperature and you won't be able to feel pain. So then they got this ice block and they like moved it up my torso and up to like my boob area, and they're like, you shouldn't feel anything below here. They moved it up and they're like, what do you feel? I'm like, oh, I can still feel it here. I think they waited a bit more time and then they did it again, and then I couldn't feel anything, like if it was cold or hot, but I could feel the touch of it. It was quite a weird sensation. You pretty much came into the room ready for the C-section.
At that point as well, like they prevented Maddie and me seeing anything from what they were doing. They'd kind of put like a tarp over, you know, probably from like just underneath her breasts.
Yeah, I was like laying down and they had like the sheet up so that we couldn't see what they were doing. I was quite freaked out. I remember when the anesthetic guy came in, he was like, do you want to be awake for it or asleep? I was like, well, everyone's told me I should be awake because I'd already asked the midwives. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to be awake for this. And they're like, no, you do. You want to see your baby. I'm like, okay, like I'll be awake for it. Yeah, he asked again, like, do you want to be awake or asleep? I'm like, I think I want to be awake. I was kind of freaking out because like a C-section, that's so weird. Like it's so weird that someone cuts you open while you're awake and then like rummages in your organs, you know, and pulls out your baby. Like it's so weird. Like I was kind of scared and freaked out.
Yeah.
So like I remember just looking at Ryan and I'm like, let's just keep talking.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about anything.
I think we were just trying to find stuff to talk about, and I think we'd been watching The Circle on Netflix.
Yeah.
They had the new season come out, so we were just was like, oh, so who do you think's going to win the circle? And who's your favourite? And, so funny when this happened. And just trying to find, like, different kind of topics to just talk about.
Yeah, just talking about anything. Just keep my mind off it. And
And then it was just randomly, I think, like, we were just talking and then we just started hearing crying.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. No, I was so out of it.
Yeah. Oh, Maddie was, like, shaking uncontrollably as a side effect.
The side effect of, like, the spinal block anesthesia or whatever it is that they did to me was that you can get the shakes. So I'm, like, on the table with my arms, like, doing this. I also had a really lovely nurse before the C-section happened because I was, like, really upset and scared and, like, sort of crying about it. She, like, took my hand and she was like, you're going to get through this. And, like, she was such an angel, like, I'll never forget her.
Yeah, she was lovely. I mean, you had a lot of lovely nurses through the whole thing, which was great.
Really lovely.
Because you want like the nurses and the people caring for you in like one of your most vulnerable moments.
Yeah.
To be polite and nice and caring and seeing like they actually care about you as a person.
Yeah. Anyway, we should get to the exciting moment when he was actually born.
Yes.
So, yeah, as Ryan said, we were talking and then all of a sudden we hear this cry. And then you actually pulled out your camera and filmed it, so I'll insert some footage.
Yeah, well, they someone came up to me and said, like, oh, we're pulling him up now if you want to film something. I was like, yeah, of course. So I pulled out my phone, which was great.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, he just said, like, if you want to film it, like, do it now.
I thought we were talking the whole time.
No, there's just like a moment. Yeah, so I managed to get some footage of that, which was great. And they kind of, like, pulled him up, showed us, and then it was like for a little bit, so we sort of got to see what he was, and hear his little crying, see his little face.
When they pulled him up too, like, I look back at the footage and it makes me feel sad actually because when they pull him up and sort of show him to us, like, I go to reach out and then you see like a doctor's hand like pull my hand
it's
away.
like, no, I can't do that yet.
Yeah.
I guess when you see it in like media and movies and when you think about it, like, you have like a vaginal birth. Like, the baby comes out and they kind of give it to you and you get that nice skin to skin.
Yeah.
And I guess this is kind of where like a lot of the trauma sort of happened. Like, Maddie was cut open and she was shaking uncontrollably. She was out of it, like it'd been a 22-hour labor.
Yeah.
And then like they sort of showed
At this point it was like 11:30 at night, like 11. He was born at 11:55.
It was just traumatic, And
yeah,
like
it wasn't good.
And like again, Maddie was cut open. It wasn't like, oh, easy baby. Like, they're kind of holding it up, showing us from like further back. And then they sort of took him away to make sure he's okay.
Yeah.
And then I think at that point we were just kind of like, oh yeah, awesome, thank God he's out, and like, Maddie's still shaking uncontrollably, she's still like strapped down, and then they have to spend another, I think, 45 minutes stitching her up. But I think during that time where they were doing it, they did bring Jasper over.
Once they had sorted him out, they like bundled him up and they brought him over and they put him by my head. So like, I know with some C-sections, like they put the baby on you still, but like I didn't even get to have that. They put him by me.
I wonder maybe it was the temperature as well. Like, he was super wrapped up in like all these blankets and everything.
Yeah, maybe it was too cold.
He has this like, you should insert the photo, like he's got this little mad angry face, like.
It's like, what is this world?
Like, he's like, put me back in the warm, cozy womb I was in.
Yeah. The whole thing was actually, like, we're telling it in quite a jokey, happy way right now, but the whole thing's actually quite traumatic.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much straight after that, like, they were stitching Maddie up. I walked outside, I almost cried. Like, I sat down on a chair and it was just so overwhelming. Like, I was about to start bawling my eyes out. Aww. But then I got called over to, I think, do the weighing of him and check stuff over, so I kind of had to, like, get up and, keep doing things, so didn't really get a lot of time to sort of feel anything. It was just kind of go, go, go.
Yeah. For me, it was weird too, because after having the C-section, I realized that it's really strange to have your baby taken out of you and not birthed through you. Like, for some reason, like, I felt this urge of I really wanted to give birth to him rather than have him taken from me, in a sense. I know I've still given birth to him, but for me, I don't know how to explain it other than it just feels like primal. One good thing that the hospital did was, after I was all stitched up, I was wheeled out, and within the hour of him being born, they got him on me. They did get me some skin to skin, and they also put him on my boob so we could like start the breastfeeding process. I think it's quite important, especially within the first hour, for your baby to like learn how to breastfeed. They need to be on you and sort of attached to your boob. Like, I was glad that the hospital did that for me.
They took up to like her room where she was going to stay at the hospital for the rest of her stay. And I think we're in his own little like spot next to you.
Yeah, he was in like a little hospital bassinet.
I think it was probably like 2 in the morning, 2:30 or something in the morning. Like you hadn't had any food.
No.
Like I barely had any food. Maddie brought snacks for her to eat while she was there, which
labor.
I ate because we had been there for so long. I was like, we haven't eaten anything.
I wasn't hungry at all.
Yeah, I did try to get you to eat something, but you didn't want to.
Too much pain.
So it was like 2:33, I think. And then I ended up having to head home. I had to come back the next day. I think like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or something. But yeah, we didn't get any dinner, so I ate all your snacks.
Yeah. At least Mum got dinner.
Yeah, Mum went dinner. She left for a bit and came back.
Yeah, and she couldn't be in the C-section because only one person could be there. But she waited around just to see me. And
She was waiting a while too. It was like a few hours just waiting.
It was nice to see her just at the end, and then she went home. Now we have our little boy. I was in the hospital for 3 days because it was classified an emergency C-section. The report from going in the surgery and doing the C-section was when they looked around, they couldn't find any reason as to why his heart rate was dropping. The cord wasn't wrapped around his neck. Apparently my pelvis was like open enough, like wide enough where he could have fit through. They also said his head wasn't engaged at all, like it was really far away from my cervix. One of the other doctors said, apparently you extract the babies through the C-section with the forceps, and they said it was really hard to get him out. They took like 4 tries to get him out.
And you could see like, I think there's even some photos where you can see like red marks and like even on his ear, his ear was a bit squished because they've been trying to get him out.
Yeah, so like not entirely sure why that happened, like why he was so hard to get out. Also why I didn't dilate. While I was in the hospital, like I talked to the doctors and midwives about it a few times. Kept asking like why didn't I progress? And I remember I had this really nice midwife and she said, oh, just because you didn't progress, you still did all the work. Like your cervix thinned out and it opened. And then you got to like a 3 or 4 centimeters and then it stalled and stopped. But that doesn't mean that next time that wouldn't happen for you. She was saying like your body will remember all that you've done this time around and it should be easier next time kind of thing. So that gave me some hope too, which yeah, that was sweet of her.
For anybody as well going into, planning on having a pregnancy or currently going through pregnancy, don't feel bad if you get to a point and you have to have one. We did everything right, and our pregnancy was completely normal and we still had to have a C-section.
Yeah.
Like you never know how it's going to go on the day and when you're actually in the labor, and sometimes things just don't go exactly as they're meant to, and you just got to have it, so don't feel bad and do plan for it just in case.
For some people, like knowing too much is bad, but I think for most people knowledge is power, so do research everything. The only saving grace that we had in terms of learning about C-section was we did do that hospital childbirth course.
Yeah.
And in that she did go over C-section a little bit, but I was pretty much like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah. I guess that's the end of the birthing story.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much more to tell. It was hard recovering from the C-section, but we have a beautiful little baby boy.
I did get to cut the umbilical cord as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they took him off, they did take me around for like a second. They said, "Oh, you want to cut it?" And they gave me. It was weird. They gave me these like children's scissors. It was kind of funny. I was expecting to get like these like big like hatchet clippers kind of thing, and it was these little kid scissors. Like, oh, okay.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Tiny little scissors.
It was tiny little scissors, like. And the umbilical cord was weird. It felt like rubber.
Ew.
Yeah, it was like weird rubber, and I had to cut it like twice to get through it. Ugh.
I'm happy that's over now. It was traumatic at the time. I'm probably going to talk to a psychologist about it and just debrief. Yeah. Thank you for following along if you've been following along on my pregnancy videos. I'm sorry I haven't posted as many as I wanted to, but towards the end of pregnancy I'm like, oh my god, I have to do so much stuff to get ready, and then I couldn't like work on editing my videos. Then after having him, I didn't realize how much time is taken up looking after a little newborn. We're so lucky to be able to film this video now.
Yeah.
It was an effort.
It definitely was an effort.
Yeah. So that's it for us. Please like this video if you liked it. Subscribe down below if you'd like to see more content. And we'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Have
See
a
ya.
good day.
Bye. Cue the montage.
Let's look at the same time. side part.
Hey, little man.
Thanks, guys. Oh, little man. Oh,
So little.
yeah. Oh. How you feeling?
Good.
Yeah. It was before 12.
Nice.
It was before 12.
Is it before
It's
12?
before 12.
He's a special baby.
He's a very special baby. He's a very special baby because he's alpha.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can hear him over there.
Oh, it's little guys. He'll grow up to be like.
Yeah. That little man. Look at him. Little buddy.
Wait, I'll do a little filmy of it. Oh, look at his little face.
Small man.
Small little baby.
He's all happy and sleepy now. Kiss his little forehead.
It's only a kiss away.
You can kiss his forehead and you can't do anything about it.